Okay, good morning. I just wanted to go over this warm-up because it's very important that we know how to simplify radicals, which was a skill that we learned in Algebra 1. I know some of you didn't learn everything you were supposed to learn in Algebra 1, so we have to get past that because this unit on trigonometry, we're going to be simplifying radicals a lot, okay? So when we simplify a radical that is a perfect square, that means that I can multiply two of the same numbers to get this number. We simply get a whole number. So notice that in order to get 36, I can multiply 6 times 6. Since I have two of the same number, they are a couple. And when we take the square root of 36, we get one of those two numbers that were the same. So the square root of 36 is 6. Now, notice that the square root is the opposite of a square because we could rewrite this as 6 squared. So anytime we want to get the square root or the square off of a number, we take the square root, which gives me one of those numbers. All right? So let's look at number 2, 144. Now, if you're not sure if 144 is a perfect square, you can make a square list. And the way we go about making a square list is you're just going to multiply the numbers together from 1 to 12, and we'll make a perfect square list, which is something that we're going to need to use as we get deeper into this unit. So the quicker you can learn your perfect squares, the easier this unit is going to be. So I'm going to show you how you make a perfect square list. Alright, I'm going to put it just below the problems. Alright, so I'm going to go from 1 to 12. So I'm just writing all the numbers down from 1 to 12. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Perfect squares are when we multiply two of the same number, so that means we have to square each one of these numbers. Now this is an exponent, which means we're really multiplying two of the base number or the big number. Okay? This is going to give me a list of perfect squares. The faster you learn these perfect squares, the easier this unit is going to be for you because you'll be able to work through your problems a lot faster. This is one of the basic skills from Algebra 1 that we have to know in this unit in geometry in order to be successful. So in order to find out what 1 squared is, I just multiply 1 times 1. 1 times 1 is 1. So that means 1 is a perfect square. We'll do the same for 2. 2 squared is the same thing as 2 times 2, which is 4. And we'll go down the list, continue with the pattern. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 4 is 16. 5 times 5, 25. 6 times 6, 36. 7 times 7, 49. 8 times 8, 64. 9 times 9, 81. 10 times 10, 100. And 11 times 11, 121. And 12 times 12, 144. So if you see any of these numbers, 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, 100, 121, and 144, if you see them under the radical, you know that you're going to get a whole number as your answer. So notice that 144 is a perfect square. So when I take the square root of 144, I get one of these 12s as my answer. So the square root of 144 is 12. Now you can also check this in your calculator by hitting your blue button, which is your second button. You would hit your blue button, and then you would hit your x squared button. And your calculator, that's going to give you the radical symbol, and then you can just type in the number that's under the radical. excuse my handwriting because I'm getting used to writing on this board. So if you do second, which is your blue button, x squared, and then type in the number that's under the radical, it will give you an answer. Now, if you get an answer that's a decimal, that means you have to go back and simplify it, because most of your answers on your CDA are not given in decimal form. But if you get a whole number, like we did here with 6 and 144, you can go ahead and write that answer down. You do not have to show work if it is a perfect square, okay? Now, for numbers 3 and 4, they are not perfect squares. So there's a very easy method that we can use to find, to simplify these square roots, and we're going to use this perfect square list. So that's why I wanted to make sure that we knew how to get this list, because we're going to use these numbers. So when I break down 28, I'm looking for two numbers that multiply together to give me 28. But one of those numbers has to be a perfect square. So it has to be one of these numbers that are on the left-hand side. So we're looking at the number 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, 100, 121, and 144. So you can't use the numbers that I did not circle. Of the circled numbers, which one of these numbers will go into 28 evenly? Well, I happen to know that 4 times 7 is 28. 4 is the perfect square. So remember, when we take the square root of a perfect square number, we're going to take the square root of both of these numbers. But when we take the square root of a perfect square, we get a whole number. So the square root of 4 is 2. And since 7 is not a perfect square, we know that by looking on the list, because the circled numbers, none of the circled numbers is a 7. I just leave that as square root of 7. So this would be my final answer, and it is written in square root form. So notice how one of the numbers that you use to multiply to get the top number have to be off your perfect square list, okay? These two numbers that you write here, they must multiply to give you the number that's on top of them. All right? So let's try it again with 162. Now I'm going to use my calculator to try to find a number that will divide into 162. Now when you put this in your calculator, you do not put it in with the radical. You're just putting the number 162, and we're going to divide it by one or more of these square roots to see which one works, okay? So I want to start with a big number, so I'm going to say 162 divided by 36. I got 4.5, so that one doesn't work. You can't get a decimal. So 162, I'll try 81, divided by 81. Okay, that worked. So my two numbers I'm going to use is going to be 81 times 2. And 81 times 2 multiplies to give me 162. Now notice 81 came off of my perfect square list. So when I take the square root of 81, I get 9. So remember, after we write them, we take the square root of each one of our numbers. So the square root of 81 will be 9. That one gives me a whole number. Notice it is not under the radical anymore because it's a perfect square. And since 2 is not a perfect square, it stays underneath the radical. So this is a big number, 9, and the 2 is underneath the radical. There's my answer. So this completes the warm-up for today. If you need to go back and review how to simplify your radicals, this warm-up will be available on my website so that you can go back and look at it anytime you need to. You must know how to simplify radicals in order to be successful in this unit. So please go back, go to my website and watch this video as much as possible. If you need to come to tutoring, you can see Ms. Brown and Ms. Anderson Miss Anderson tutors on Tuesdays. And I'm talking about the Miss Anderson in the lower Warren Doris building. Or you can see Miss Brown. I think she tutors on Wednesdays. Okay. Remember the schedule that I gave you as in the letter that I gave you to give to your parents. So that had all of the geometry tutoring times. But you must know how to simplify. So if you didn't understand what I just presented, you need to go to tutoring. You can also see Miss Fritch across the hallway on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Mr. Love is also available too. All right. I hope this helped, and I hope it was very clear so that you could understand it. Have a good day.